Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing very well today and you're ready to start your day with myself early on PTV World. Well, this morning we have a wonderful show lined up for you. But before we do that, I hope you guys are enjoying the fast so far and that they're going well. But one thing in the mornings, although I would have thought things would be a bit more relaxed. My road rage has decreased, I have noticed it, but there is that slight irritation on, just a little bit, just the day-to-day when they go into your lane without indicating or all the cutting. I'm guilty of doing the same stuff, but, it is something that we need to bear in mind, and I feel like Ramadan is going to be the month where I break this cycle of letting everything affect me. But before we get started with our first segment, Today we will be looking at Surah Al-Imran, and it will be telling us about worldly possessions and how to deal with it. But before we do that, we're going to look at some stories of what's happening, and then we will get started. Let's take a look. Okay, so the museum in Urumqi, China is famous for its rare collection of items from Xinjiang. Incredible. Museums are the best. Moving on, the state of Jerry Lewis is letting go of nearly 400 items from the late actor's life and career with the help of Julian's auctions at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas. Jerry Lewis was great. Wonderful actor. And first test of the two-match series between Pakistan and England will begin tomorrow at Lord's Cricket Ground in London. And these days, and it seems like in certain parts of England, they aren't having good summery weather. I spoke to my friend in London, so they had summery weather, but outside, on the outskirts, it was a bit colder. So for everyone who's going to be watching the cricket, do enjoy yourselves. But now moving on, as you guys know, in the first half, we will be looking and taking a verse out of the Quran, looking at it and looking at its implementation into our day-to-day lives, because this is something that we are lacking, or maybe we don't have enough knowledge of on a larger picture. So to discuss Surah Al-Imran, which tells us on how to balance between worldly goods and how to balance our lives. We have been joined by Dr. Kamal Kessler, who is a pediatrician by profession, but is a Quran teacher for over 20 years, teaching children about character building through the Quran and Sunnah. Assalamu alaikum, good morning, welcome back.
Walaikum assalam wa
How are you?
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I'm fine.
Wonderful. How is your fast going so far?
Alhamdulillah, pretty good.
Excellent.
I was just thinking that time is just moving on, and probably, in like a couple of days we'll be done with it.
Absolutely. We'll look back and we're like, oh gosh, the whole month has passed already.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so today we're looking at Surah Al-Imran.
Yes, Surah Al-Imran.
And it is very important because this is something that comes in our conversation on a regular basis on how to balance day-to-day lives with our spirituality, with our religion, with extracurricular activities. So, but this is taking things internal. Yeah. So tell us about this.
Now, Maha, what I have observed is that the moment you want to become religious or want to study Quran, the one fear that most of people have is about how to strike this balance. So in today's verses from Surah Al-Imran, today we're going to touch on, inshallah, verses from 14 to 17.
Wonderful.
And we'll get a very comprehensive message on that. So let's start with the verses. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ وَالْقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ وَالْخَيْلِ الْمُصَوَّمَةِ وَالْأَنْعَامِ وَالْحَرْثِ ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حُسْنُ الْمَآبِ. This is like a whole verse, and if you look at the translation of it, it says, beautified for people is the love of that which they desire, and then the categories of all that have been given which we desire. Let us first try to understand the desires, and then we'll move on to the categories.
Okay.
The verse starts, Zuyyina linnas. It's like the desires of certain things have been so much engraved inside me, and every time I read this verse, in my mind, I think of that emoji with the heart and it has been pierced.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my God, I can't just resist it. It's something like that, the feeling that you have when you look around at different things. So this verse basically tells us that there are many things around us, though variable, but we are going to be definitely attracted to them. Okay? And it is going to be different for different people. But that's how we are by default. Okay? We have the love of all the worldly things inside us, and we need to understand how to cope with them and how to strike the balance. So let us look at the list which has been given to us. This is part of a couple of things which have been highlighted. The first thing, that is an-nisa, women. Okay? The love of women is there. I mean, you would see that even when we are sitting somewhere as women, you open a fashion magazine or something, you're more attracted to what the women are dressed up like, how they're walking, how they're talking, what's there in their life. So women, they have a lot of attraction, and that has been highlighted over here. Second important thing that this verse talks about is wal-baneen, the sons. I know sometimes it infuriates us women, like, how dare somebody says that. But I've even seen in our cultures, sometimes father would be sitting with his daughter and saying, tum bilkul mera beta ho, you're just like my son. Rather than saying, you're fine if you're a daughter and you can do whatever you want to, and I give you liberty to get education and everything. But somehow in a lot of cultures, sons have certain, they're like the signs of pride for the families and people. So that has been described over here, that some people would be like that, whether they are educated or not educated. It has got nothing to do with it.
Right.
Third important thing that has been mentioned over here is wal qanatir al muqantara min al zahabi wal fidda, heaped up sums of gold and silver. Everyone wants to have a new fashion thing with them, a lot of money, and these days the value of everything is calculated with the gold. So the heaps, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions over here that we keep wanting more and more. Leave a woman in a gold or jewelry shop, and she'll buy one thing and she'll be then starting saving for the next one, no matter whatever is the gold price of the market.
Okay.
Then we find out about the next thing that has been mentioned over here is wal khayl. These are the wal khayl al musawwama. These are the branded horses.
Okay.
It is so interesting. Even in our times, we admire the branded cars.
Yes.
Okay. We look at a lot of things in our life, and we talk about horsepower.
Yeah.
Even you look at some of the up-to-date, like the branded cars, like Ferrari. It is going to have this signature horse on it, So the horsepower or the horse is still a signature when people crave for it.
Yeah.
Then we have wal anam wal hars, that is the cattle and the tilled land. People want to have own land, property, one house after another house. So in this verse, basically, as I said earlier, that we have been told that we will have natural inclination, desire, craving for all these things. Some of them are going to have, some people will have for one and others will have for other.
Okay.
And apart from that, there are, yes, more things which will be there around in our life that we'll be inclined to.
Okay.
But then in the same verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Zalika mata'ul hayatid dunya. These are the blessings which have been given to us in this worldly life.
Right.
And the verse ends with, Wallahu indahu husnul ma'ab. And what is with Allah is the most beautiful thing. So after describing that, yes, settle down, don't carry the guilt inside you that, why do I still like all these things? This has got nothing to do with being religious or being not religious. It is a human nature. Whatever religion or caste or setup you belong to, you want to have all those things. So rather than carrying the guilt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to move on and understand why all these things are inside you and how you handle them.
Right.
So this is what a temporary abode for us, and this is mata. Mata means something which is beneficial,
Right.
but we use it for a short period of time. Okay? This is not going to be with us permanently. So that tells us that in this life, we need to sort of always making comparison with the hereafter. Over there, it is going to be forever. Over here, it is going to be temporary. So
Right.
over here, what we do is, we can use all these things and invest it, use them as tools to invest in the hereafter. That means we will have to understand what is halal, lawful in a certain situation, and what is haram, unlawful in a certain situation.
Right.
Okay? So for everything, all of these things, for example, somebody likes women, what do? They marry them rather than moving on in relationships.
Okay.
You know? Somebody likes to have a lot of gold or a lot of all these material things. You make sure you are giving their zakat, the charity, and you are earning them through the lawful means.
Okay, and okay, so this is and this is why, you know, we keep highlighting the importance it is, you know, rather than being fed the information, you need to know, because within the Quran it tells you about your day-to-day dealings as well,
Exactly.
even how to deal with these, you know, very human behaviors, very human kind of concepts, but there's actual ways to deal with it, which actually is in line with, you know, methods that we have come up with in the modern age as
Exactly,
well.
exactly. It goes along
It's
with
fascinating.
that. Exactly. There is a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said that if Adam's son had a valley full of gold, he would desire to have two valleys, for nothing fills his stomach except dust. That is like, you know, ultimately you pass out. You're no more over here. And Allah forgives him who repents to him. So this is a beautiful hadith which explains it further, that we do have all these desires. We move on to the next verse, which is verse number 15. And in that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, قُلْ أَنَبِّئُكُمْ بِخَيْرٍ مِّن ذَلِكُمْ. Shall I inform you of something better than that? Because we have been given all this description. And then it moves on, the verse says, لِلَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خالدين فيها وأزواج مطهرة ورضوان من الله والله بصير بالعباد. Allah Ta'ala in this described, for those who fear Allah will be gardens in the presence of their Lord, beneath which rivers flow, wherein they abide eternally, and the purified spouses are going to be there with the approval of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and Allah is seeing of all the servants. Now, why this verse is coming immediately after the list we had been given? I have seen people who would say, I don't care. Why invest in the hereafter when I'm not even sure it exists? Let me enjoy this life. This life is beautiful, and I just want to live in the moment and have fun.
Yeah.
So at that moment, Allah Ta'ala wants us to pause and think about it. No matter how much we get in this life, we at least do see everyone going away.
Yes.
In our lifetime, we see people having...
What's the saying? The only constant in life is death.
No, but it's change. It's basically change.
Change. Okay.
Yeah,
I just went in a dark.
moving from...
I'm sick, so I've gone to a dark place.
So, in this, what we need to understand is that if we invest in the right place, we get the right return.
Right.
And Allah, and over here, what Allah Ta'ala says is, you will get them forever and ever, without any worry, and without, and you will also have pleasure of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. He's going to be happy with you. So it's not like you give out everything, you shut yourself out of whatever you like. Just bring them in the right parameters. Just bring them in the right boundary. That's all that has been asked of us. And how do we do that? The next verse talks about that. Verse number 16. الَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا إِنَّنَا آمَنَّا فَاغْفِرْ لَنَا ذُنُوبَنَا وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. The moment you realize, I love these things, but I want to invest them and use them in the lawful manner, what you do is, you start making this dua, or a dua similar to that. What do you say? You say, O Lord, indeed we have believed, so forgive us our sins and protect us from the punishment of the fire. So what you're doing is you want to play safe in this life. That's all that is required for us to do. Now, the next verse, verse number 17, talks about now what do you require. Like, you know, when you get a gadget, let's say you buy a new phone or you get a laptop, it is on its default. What do? You go to some expert or you sit yourself and then you put in all the required programs that you need for the bare minimum running of the system. You need PowerPoint, you need Word, you need Office, you need Excel, Access, whatever, or Photoshop, depending upon what is your expertise. So similarly, now we require, if we are on our default, now we require certain programs to be running in our system, which are not only going to give us strength, but also help us deal with all these desires, all these cravings and inclinations. And what is that? As-sabirin. The first trait that we need to work on is acquiring sabr. And what is sabr or patience? Patience is in any given situation, you freeze yourself for a minute and think, am I making the right decision?
Okay.
Second important thing was sadiqeen. They are the truthful ones. Okay? Like in these days, we talk about this characteristic as saying somebody who has integrity.
Right.
You are honest with your own self, and you're also honest with the people you are dealing with.
Right.
And then wal qanitina, you are consistent in your obedience.
Okay.
This is another trait we need to work on. Wal munfiqeen, spending nature. These are the people who spend rather than just having everything for themselves. They are more concerned about looking at the needs of people around them.
Okay.
And then wal mustaghfirina bil ashar, and they are the one who seek forgiveness before dawn. Okay. And alhamdulillah, we have Ramadan in this. People are getting up for Sahri time, so what they can do is be up a little earlier and then make a lot of du'as and istighfar at that time.
Okay.
So these are the characteristics. Once we start working on them, those desires, they start coming into the right perspective and right places.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's all out there. It's it's written and there's a guideline and a way to manage it. But when because this is one angle that because you do teach children, and this is what we've been briefed as well, that how do we apply that, especially with, I keep saying relatively the same questions, is that in 21st century, in 2018, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of focus on material goods. If you're successful or popular or cool.
And we are living in the times of multiple choices. It's like
and,
one thing after another
exactly.
thing.
And with all these different platforms, the comparison or the desire to kind of achieve or gain more material goods, kids are really, it's not that, it's not a problem, but that's what they're faced with, wherever they turn. So how do parents guide their children to, to navigate through all of this?
I think the most important thing the parents need to understand is they should not be carrying a guilt of how they want to train their kids. That's the first important point. Because I've seen many kids who would go up to their parents and give them a huge guilt that you are the only one who are a criminal parent. You are not letting us enjoy our life or do this thing or buy this thing. Look at my friend, look at my cousins. And sometimes those kids in their homes are also addressing their parents the same way. So the first message for all the parents is, please do not take the guilt of whatever you have decided for your kids. Just relax, just calm down at that moment. Let them say what they're saying. At the very same moment, the last verse number 17 of Surah Al-Imran, the characteristics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has talked about, we need to instill them in our children.
Right.
Because sometimes you won't be able to directly tell them you can't have this or you can't have that.
Yeah.
It will become an exhausting activity for you.
Exactly.
So what you do is start working on the patience of your kid. Like a lot of time they are into instant gratification.
Yeah.
They go to a certain place, they have their pocket money and they just want to grab all the chocolates and toys.
Right.
And once they grow up, any new gadget or, just going out, hanging out with their friends and just having a high time.
Yeah.
So that's what they do. So if they have patience inside them that before I spend on something, let me just think about it.
Okay.
Second characteristic, teach them honesty. Very interestingly, there was a man who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, and he talked about a lot of issues he was struggling with. Right. He said, I'm into adultery, I'm into drinking, I'm into this habit and that habit. And he said, I'm not able to give up any one of them. So I don't know what to do. I'm sort of stuck badly. So the Prophet ﷺ told him, stop lying. Make sure you don't lie in any given situation. He said, that's it? So the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, that's it. This man came back after a couple of weeks and he said, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ, all of my bad habits are gone. The only thing I worked on was being truthful. Subhanallah, this is like so amazing. So if we teach our children that you shouldn't lie. Don't lie to yourself, face the situation properly, and come back to us if you are having any of these desires, and we will guide you how to handle them. Okay. Then the next thing that you do is teach them the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because I've seen many times parents get so concerned about the worldly affairs of their children. They're like, okay, when they were young, we are done with once the recitation of Quran with them, the Ameen is done for their Quran, and now they should be focusing on their worldly education. Every day sitting with them, or a weekly class or someplace, because this is what is going to teach them certain moral standards.
Okay.
You know, the whole world is now struggling with the value guided education or the moral standards, how to instill them in the kids. And next, make sure your kids are spent in charity or volunteer in some places where they can learn more about the human value rather than about the material gains. And yes, also encourage them to do ibadah, and especially in the month of Ramadan. You know, they can be engaging in different activities where they understand there is more to life than just having
Absolutely.
my life and my way is the highway.
Absolutely, and I think also within, I mean, actually in every country there are, there's so many people walking different walks of life, and having that exposure also helps get rid of the ignorance, and then maybe, that desire for these worldly goods is put
Exactly.
into context, that kind of greed. Okay, so now going forward as well, for adults who, you've told us all the different things that we need to work on, but how do we start working on it? Do we start working on it when we pray? Should we do it before praying? Or is this something that we should be constantly reminding ourselves?
What I find very beautiful about the Islamic way of life is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give us a tunnel vision. He always gives us a very broad spectrum.
Okay.
Like we have been given all these traits towards the end, work on these traits and you will be able to work on your desires and cravings. So what you do is each one of us can pick up, I'm very good at doing sabr, I'm very good at spending, but wait a minute, I'm not praying. I'm not having my connection where I understand what is lawful and what is not lawful. Or I'm so bad with my sabr, I'm always on the edge. So each one of us can decide where I am, where I need to work on myself.
Right.
So that's why, in this, the integrity and being honest with yourself is very important.
Okay.
And that is why the verse before that says, make a lot of dua, say a lot of istighfar. In our religion, in Islam, saying istighfar, saying, bowing down to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and saying, oh Allah, I'm the weak one.
Yeah.
And I sin, I make mistakes, I end up doing blunders. You are the one who can guide me.
Okay.
This is when the guidance comes.
Absolutely, and this is something that we really need to highlight, because there's that fear element of that I'm going to go to hell, or this is unforgivable. But what we've seen, and what you will notice over the course of the month, that continuously saying, come to me for repentance, ask for forgiveness, I will forgive you, I am merciful. And this is something that is a very strong, kind of voice within the Quran as well. But we don't tend to highlight that. And as a result, we're becoming also cruel as human beings, because we're forgetting that mercy and forgiveness side of ourselves. But with that, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we will see you tomorrow
Inshallah.
to continue as well. So that was Surah Al-Imran, talking about how to balance worldly goods and get that patience and how to become a better person. But with that, we're going to go for a short break, and then when you come back, we will be talking another way to keep yourselves healthy and positive, and find out about another field within Pakistan. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. And before the break, we were in discussion with Dr. Kaval talking about the Surah Al-Imran. But now we're going to be talking about an industry which we haven't really tended to go into before. However, but due to the nature of all my notes being everywhere, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we will be discussing, but then we will go for a short break because I need to gather everything together. But today we will be looking at the pharmaceutical industry. What is the situation within Pakistan? What is their role? What are we seeing is happening? Because, you know, we have a certain idea about it, but not exactly. You know, for me, what I know is that I can go to any pharmacy, get any over-the-counter drug. You know, I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know the history about it. You know, I don't know the quality control screens and checks. So to discuss what's happening here and all of that nature, we will be in discussion with some wonderful guests. But before we do that, we have to go for another short break, I'm afraid. And then when you come back, I will introduce you our guests to have this conversation. Welcome back, everyone, and apologies for that. But now, as I mentioned, we will be talking about pharmaceuticals. What is the situation within Pakistan? And we've been joined by extremely apt guests who, you know, who know the industry, who know what's been happening, who've been working within it for over a decade, almost 2 decades as well. So the first person I'm going to introduce is Professor Dr. Madiha Malik. She is the Director of Pharmacy Department at Hamdard University. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. Besides Professor Dr. Madiha Malik, we've been joined by Mr. Asif Nazir. He is working as a manager at the business unit at Warwick Pharmaceutical, part of the Wilson Group. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, fascinating topic. Going to get started with you, Professor. Within Pakistan, what is happening within the pharmaceutical industry and how strong is it?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity today to come and talk about come and talk about pharmacy profession. To be honest, pharmacy profession is not that much recognized in Pakistan in terms of role of pharmacists, which I think is that the pharmacist is an important team member of healthcare team, is an important member of healthcare team.
Absolutely.
So I'll just give you a brief introduction of pharmacy profession. Basically, the pharma market for Pakistan is $2.7 billion.
Wow.
And like the total health budget which we have got is like only 0.6% of the total budget is being spent on health.
Okay.
And then there are like 600 national pharmaceutical industries which have been registered in Pakistan. and 14 multinational companies are working in Pakistan. There are approximately more than 80,000 brands which are being registered in Pakistan.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and there are like, you can say around 1,94,000 doctors and 94,000 nurses and 33,000 registered pharmacists working in Pakistan.
Amazing.
And there are 67,000 community pharmacies in Pakistan, and there are 67 pharmacy schools in Pakistan, out of whom only 39 schools are being recognized by Pharmacy Council of Pakistan.
Okay.
And like we have got 100 pharmacy technician schools in Pakistan.
Okay.
So that's the, a brief, introduction about the pharmaceutical industry and pharmacy.
That's amazing. That's good. Or is that bad?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Okay.
But still,
In theory, no, we're talking about the theory, we're talking about the structure. So
Yeah.
in that regard, I mean, it's not bad. So we're going to touch upon most of these points. Okay, that's wonderful. Now, okay, so that's the status within Pakistan. But now coming down to it, what is actually happening on ground reality? Because you're talking about the pharmacists. I just made a note of that. I didn't realize there were actual pharmacists within Pakistan. I'm sorry, it's true, because you can get over the counter most of the medicines.
Exactly.
So what is happening regarding that? How does it work within Pakistan?
Yeah, actually the biggest challenge in Pakistan is the lack of recognition of role of pharmacist in Pakistan.
Okay.
Basically, the pharmacist is not the role of pharmacist is not well acknowledged by the doctors in Pakistan. They have got like their own monopoly, and they don't want the pharmacist to enter into their domain. That's one of the basic problem in Pakistan. And the second thing which I see is the major problem is among the community. Like most of the general public is not aware about the pharmacists. They consider pharmacists as, general dispensers or a compounder sort of thing, sort of persons who are just dispensing or sitting somewhere like quacks. But it's not the case. Basically, pharmacy is a 5-year PharmD is a 5-year degree, professional degree program, and then pharmacists there are a lot of you can say fields in which pharmacists fits in. Like pharmacists are working in industries, in the manufacturing section, at the community pharmacies, and the at the you can say in the academia, and in the marketing, sales, and there are a lot of fields in which pharmacists are working. But it is very unfortunate that they have not been recognized. But now Pharmacy Council has been very instrumental in this regard.
Okay, and we'll talk about that in a moment. I just want to bring Asif into the conversation, otherwise we won't get time. Okay, so Asif, you've been in this for almost 2 decades. And Professor Madhi has already highlighted some really important issues that we face within Pakistan, within the pharmaceutical industry. How do you feel that, very apt points, and a lot of us know what the issues are regarding pharmaceuticals or pharmacies or pharmacists here. What would you say you see as the biggest challenge to this industry or this area within Pakistan?
First of all, I agree with most of the things as the doctor mentioned. Pakistan pharmaceutical industry in numbers, if she talks about in dollar, I would say that in Pak rupees, Pakistan pharmaceutical industry is around 350 billion Pak rupees. And let's go down quantitatively, and that's how we would have a clear idea that what are actually the health issues are in Pakistan. Now, if we divide this 350 billion Pak rupees, we have got acute treatment for short term, 1 week, 2 week maximum, and then the chronic treatments. So for the short treatment, out of this 350 billion Pak rupees, around 90 billion, which is around 25%, is your gastro-related problems. So the gastro-related problems are primarily because of unclean water, contaminated foods, unhygienic conditions. So all these things are contributing in this gastro-related problems. Secondly, as you mentioned, that one of our the greatest health issue is this unregulated and uncontrolled quackery.
Yes, exactly.
They are practicing, and I'm telling you that even in Islamabad, there are so many quacks. They are working, and they have hundreds of patients on daily basis. So now what they are doing is that, as they don't know the details, so for even a simple infection, they're using the high dose anti-infectives, and that's how the drug resistance is emerging. So after this gastro problem drugs, anti-infective is the second biggest segment. It is around 70 to 75 billion.
Right.
So that's how it makes acute market. And then if we talk about the chronic disease, like you talk about diabetes, in Pakistan there are around 7.5 million diabetic patients. And according to WHO, by 2030, Pakistan would be among top 5 the countries having the most diabetic patients.
Okay.
So we have got these kind of challenges.
Okay.
Now, one very important thing, if we talk about the structure,
Right.
the facilities we are offering, at primary level we have the BHUs, basic health units, we have rural health centers. At secondary level we have Tehsil headquarters, we have district headquarters, and then we have the allied hospital, the teaching hospitals, and some specialized hospital like cardiology hospitals. We have different mental disorder hospitals, we have the kidney disease. So we have got the structure,
Okay.
but we don't have enough finance, enough equipment, enough manpower to actually.
But you just said it's almost a 4 billion industry, park repeat industry. So how does that not enough
it's not.
finance?
It is 350 billion Pak rupees industry, and it is growing
Yeah, I
by
said almost 4
11%.
billion. I said almost
Yes.
4 billion. So how, okay, so there's a lot of money within it. It's an industry that's making a lot of money. But then why are we seeing that the lack of recognition for the pharmacists, or proper pricing, or all these issues that we're facing? Why are we facing those when they're so big? Dr. Professor?
Yeah, actually, I think that now the situation is not that bad. Like if you see, like 10 years back, most of the people were not like familiar with the name of the pharmacist. But now I think Pharmacy Council has been very instrumental in promoting the pharmacy profession in Pakistan. And now with the passage of time, things are improving. Like I just mentioned, that now we are developing a good number of pharmacy workforce to come forward and take the role. But I would like to highlight few of the issues in Pakistan where I think that the role of pharmacist should be properly utilized, which is underutilized in terms of their role in those. Like if I mention, Pakistan ranks on number 5th position among the top TB burden countries in the world.
Okay.
And out of 188 countries, Pakistan ranked on 9th number in obesity. And there are 21.9 million people who are suffering from diabetes, and 18% prevalence of hypertension in our adult population. And 50 million of our population is suffering from mental health diseases. So if I compare, the role of pharmacists in Pakistan with the international countries, the developed world, or even few of the developing countries, what they have done is that they have given they have utilized the skills of the pharmacist. Like you see, I just mentioned before that there are 67,000 community pharmacies in Pakistan, but there is lack of pharmacists over there. There is no pharmacist or qualified person who is available at those pharmacies to dispense, the POM drugs, the prescription over drugs, or even the OTC drugs. And those pharmacies are basically handled by the dispensers or sale persons who are not properly qualified. Okay. Now, if you see like how I see the role of pharmacist in Pakistan, to me, the pharmacist must be involved in geriatric care. Like, in the international world, pharmacists are running the geriatric clinics, they are running the pediatric clinics. They are basically coming in the health technology assessments, HTA, then the pharmacovigilance. Then basically they are working for the obesity clinics, they are running the obesity, hypertensive and diabetic clinics. But you see, the foremost thing is that all the stakeholders need to sit together, and they have to decide, and they have to accept the role of the people who are an integral part of the healthcare team, which is missing. So the situation, I see that I'm very positive about it, and we are really struggling hard. We are producing empirical evidence databases. We are working on health literacy and other things. So I think that situations will improve.
That's wonderful, and that's great. And I will talk about the knock-on effect. But before I move on, Asif, you had to add something.
Yes, I would like to make it clear that we are actually mixing two things. One is pharmaceutical industry, and the second one is pharmacists. So pharmaceutical industry is doing pretty good job. To be very honest.
Sounds great. Like it's doing a great job.
And if you go 10 years back, the share of the multinational company was around 60-65%.
Right.
And then the national companies, they emerged like anything. Their quality was really amazing. And now the situation is reversed. 65% to 70% of business belong to the national companies.
Wonderful.
And they're being recognized in Pakistan and across the world as well.
Okay.
Their efficacy. And second problem is what ma'am is talking about is the pharmacist.
Yes.
That they have got the issue that they are being underrated and they are not actually doing what they are supposed to do.
Okay, well the thing is, lucky for you guys, I've been briefed on both. I was told we're doing pharmaceutical and pharmacist, so it's fine that we're covering both. But actually, Asif, you raised a really important point about the level of, the number of companies within Pakistan. You mentioned staggering figures about how many medicines that we're producing, how many companies are here within Pakistan. Now, is that a good thing? Like you said, is the quality control being there? Are we seeing any issues on that side? And then I will come down to the pharmacy thing. So on that angle, is that a positive thing that we're producing so many drugs?
Both.
You said there's 80,000 companies.
80,000 products.
Yeah, 80,000 registered brands. I mean, are there 80,000 diseases and illnesses out there? Like, oh
No,
goodness.
in Pakistan, in fact, in Pakistan, there is a sea of, there is a clutter of generics.
Right, okay.
So for a single molecule, you would find 100 of brands.
Right.
So this is sort of, the heaven for the generic market, Pakistan.
And that's a good thing that we have all these brands or not?
Not that good.
Right.
Means up to some, what internationally recommendation is that you should have 4, 5, 6 generics maximum. You go for 10, means if you have, considering your local market, but 100 generics, 200 generics, so, it has the disadvantages. Now the advantage is of having generics is that that's how you can control the price.
Right.
So for example, let me give you an example. If an original brand antibiotic is costing like 60 rupees per tab, so you would find with the generics like 5 to 10 rupees per tab.
Okay.
So this is the advantage, that in this fierce competition, ultimately the patients, they are getting the benefit. But when you have so much of the generics, so that's the problem.
Okay, so now then that now brings us down to the role of the pharmacist and the pharmacies. Like you said, that they're not being utilized as much as they should. But do we know that in those 5 years of training and then the post, kind of training that the pharmacists have to do, like Asif just mentioned, that all these different brands, do the pharmacists know all the different ranges for the different illnesses and the different generic ones, or which one's suited for different symptoms, or
Yes, exactly.
So what's happening here? Because I mean, if I will go to a chemist. I'm not going to take any brand, shop names, but I'll just be like, I've got this headache, or I've got something wrong. Can I have this medicine? Or which medicine? And I don't know if they're a pharmacist, but I'm trusting them.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, our PharmD curriculum is being designed in such a way that that curriculum imparts the clinical skill in a pharmacist,
Wonderful.
which can help the patient, to identify the most cost-effective and rational treatment for their disease. But the point is this, that we have to change the mindset of the community.
Right.
That is the most important thing. Like you said, that you go to you go to a pharmacy and you ask a chemist. So now what I think and what I believe is that the change will begin when you will go to a pharmacy and you will ask, where is the pharmacist? I want to see the pharmacist.
Right.
And I want to get the counseling or any of the information from that pharmacist. And similarly, if these pharmacists will be sitting in the hospitals, so they will be sharing the workload of the doctors. Like doctors have too much of the workload, they cannot counsel all the patients over there. So the patients have the longer waiting times and all that. So I'll just give you a quick example.
You literally have 10 seconds to give me an
I'll just give
example,
you a
because we've
quick
actually run out of time.
I'll just give you a quick example that in Johannesburg, they have basically launched a concept of ATM pharmacy, and that is totally run by the pharmacist to reduce the waiting time of the patients.
I'm really sorry, apologies, we've actually run out of time. This is actually a huge topic, and there's a lot of more questions, and there's so many more angles that we need to explore. So we will try and get you guys back over the course of the next few weeks, if that's okay. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show. We spoke about Surah Al-Imran in the first half, how to balance material goods, and then in the second half, how to look out for ourselves regarding the pharmaceutical industry, and also touching upon what the role of pharmacists and the structure within Pakistan. But it is a very vast topic, and we will be looking at it in the future as well. But with that, if you would like any information or you'd like to speak to our guests about any of the points that they've raised, log on to our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of World This Morning, our Twitter page, World This Morning without the G, our Daily Motion and YouTube page, World This Morning, and the repeat is at 11:05 p.m. this evening. Have a wonderful day. Best of luck with your fast, and I will see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Stay.
Book is life. Book is hope. And book is light for the future.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching PTV.